the message or the information provided by Dr. Punya Wong earlier in the WhatsApp group. Yeah, in fact, Dr. Punya apparently has preceded the Kementerian Perpaduan Negara, even before they started to suggest to open. He has already sent us a message to say that there are things that we need to be careful. What are the mitigation measures that we need to put in place, and whether we are ready. Yeah. So a brief introduction to facilitator Dr. Punya Wong. He is currently an associate professor of internal medicine at Monash University, Malaysia. He is an active Dhamma speaker and was invited to speak at the 3rd, 7th, and 8th Global Conference on Buddhism. Dr. Punya was awarded the 2017 Nalanda Award for Dhamma Duta work. I understand that he also written a few books on Buddhism, a few articles and books on Buddhism. So, and then, I think I'll let Dr. Punya pass over to Dr. Punya Wong, before I introduce DDR Lim later on. So over to you, Dr. Punya Wong.
Thank you, brother. Nama Budaya to the venerables. Nama Budaya to the Dhamma family here. Thank you for inviting me to come and share. May I share the screen, please, Sister Julie? Sister Julie, can you stop the share screen so that I can share screen here?
Brother Casey, please stop the screen, please.
Yeah.
One moment, Dr. Punya.
All right.
Okay. Now, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, we are gathered today to discuss whether we are prepared, as Brother Tan said, with regards to the reopening of our centers. Now, please be aware that we as responsible Buddhists must not allow this to happen. This is in the United States as reported in Newsweek just a few days ago, the 19th, that when the churches reopened, the pastor dies and leaders, churchgoers, catch coronavirus. As responsible people, we must not allow this to happen in our community. It was announced on 21st May that religious centers in green zones will reopen on June 10th. But let me assure you that we are not the only country doing this. Worldwide, many countries are reopening their religious centers. And if you look at the news today, many churches in Europe have started functioning, including France. And of course, everybody is rather concerned as to this possible consequences. So for us, much decisions and preparations has needed, because we certainly cannot go back to our old days, our old ways of doing things. Now, the schools have already started reopening. Understandably, exam years are so important, so there is really no choice. And you can see spacing of chairs, distancing, etc. being prepared. To be realistic, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, the nation has to reopen. It is either we die of COVID-19 or we die of hunger from a broken economy. So the reality is, coronavirus is here to stay. Even now in Malaysia, every day we are still seeing about 50, 60, yesterday was 60, new patients. Now, while the number does not look big, it actually does not matter. Please remember that in South Korea, all it took was one lady in one church to have restarted the whole procedure. So as long as we have people in the community with coronavirus, we have to be very careful. And we need to act with wisdom towards our Sangha members, our own members, and our guests, especially those who are most at risk, the senior members and those with underlying medical conditions. If you look at what is happening in Singapore, they have huge numbers of foreign workers now put up in Singapore Expo, Changi Center, and they are all down with coronavirus. Huge numbers, but most of them are not sick. So the people who are really badly affected, who fall sick, are our senior members and those people with underlying medical conditions like diabetes, treatment for cancer, etc. Now, the first thing is to maintain awareness and to sustain this awareness. It is easy to go with a big bang and make everybody aware, but it is difficult to continue this awareness among everybody, especially as the numbers go down. I already see in the condominium where I stay that children are running around, parents are talking to each other, we have parties going on, and people are already starting to forget. So I saw this picture on the internet at the entrance of a temple in Thailand, and I thought this was a very good way of maintaining publicity. Anybody who see an image of a Buddha wearing a mask will certainly be taken aback. And I thought that if we are to maintain awareness in our centers, in our viharas, we need to do something really eye-catching right at the very entrance. The SOP has been put up earlier. This is our guidelines, which we have to follow, and I will go into them in greater detail. Now, in Johor, especially in Johor Bahru, our religious centers, our mosques, and our suraus had in fact opened even before this. They have limited the numbers strictly, and they send the police and the RELA to guard these places and ensure that the SOP is followed. Even in my own center, Metta Lodge in JB, the police do drop by every now and then and check that it is indeed closed. Now, in the SOP, the first thing right at the very top you will see is that there is an age limit barring those above 70 and below 12 from even entering the premises. This is very strict. And of course, they also limit that no more than 30 people be allowed at any given time. Now, this is not an unfair demand from the government when we realize that the people who are most at risk are those above 70. And for those below 12, it is very difficult to maintain social distancing. Now, as only 30 participants are allowed for any service or any event, now Buddhist centers must have a new method. We must have pre-registration. This is to avoid confusion on the day concerned and, of course, disappointment. Now, this will be a new behavior in Malaysia as most of our activities were open door events. People were most welcome. Now, we have to do pre-registration. And even if we are to do and allow talks to go on with pre-registration, we are mindful that there are only 30 people to whom is allowed in the center listening to the speaker. So it is inevitable that simultaneous streaming for those who cannot come have to be made available. I was, in a sense, lucky. Singapore had its first closure of religious centers when there was a cluster in a church. After that, all the centers closed. And then as their numbers came down, they allowed some of the centers to reopen, and Buddhist Fellowship in Singapore reopened in that interim period. I was so happened to be talking at their Sunday service, and so I witnessed how it was done in that gap, after which, of course, everything was closed again. So pre-registration means that anybody who wishes to attend an event have to go online and register your name. When a maximum number of people have, for example, in Malaysia now, 30 being reached, registration is closed and no one else can come in anymore. And on the day concerned, only these 30 people are allowed. Now, this will not be easy to implement in our country, where not everyone is internet savvy, and certainly people do not expect that I must get permission to attend a service. So this is something that we will have to teach our members if we are to reopen. Only Malaysians are allowed. Now again, this is not unreasonable of the government. Please remember we are surrounded by Indonesia. Indonesia has the same population as the United States of America. As Brother Tan showed just now, you saw the very frightening numbers in America. Why is Indonesia not having the same numbers when their population is the same and they already have communal spread? The answer is, I don't know. But certainly it is a country which is still a potential source of coronavirus. And so foreigners coming in, whether as workers, whether as guards, we have to be very mindful that they have to be screened. And of course, as far as the government is concerned, for services, only Malaysians will be allowed to try and minimize this. Now, for Buddhist centers, they even say we can open up to once or twice a week, which is very generous. As expected, any participant coming in must have your temperature scanned and you must wear a mandatory face mask and routinely use hand sanitizers. So there are two major risk factors involved here, the human and the physical structure. As far as the human is concerned, it is spreading via droplets as he speaks, as he sings, as he sneezes, as he coughs, and frankly, even as he breathes. This is why social distancing is so important and wearing a mask undeniably effective. The other is the physical structure, the environment. Our centers inevitably have lots of things that people will touch, and on these surfaces, the coronavirus will survive up to 3 days on hard surfaces and 1 day on porous surfaces. So we have to be careful that all these have to be taken into account. Now, the government had put it as an SOP that there must be a distancing of at least 1 meter between people. So it is mandatory to practice physical distancing, which means any activity for the 30 people can only be conducted in a large hall. What happened when I was in Singapore was they put all the cushions beforehand and spaced it out following markings on the floor. I think that also will be a system which all of us have to do. And you cannot move the cushions or chairs. Secondly, we have to be realistic. We will need to modify our puja services. Traditionally, we pass a candle or fruit or water or flowers hand by hand and then finally make it an offering. This is a potential spread of the coronavirus via what we call formats. The 10th, 11th, 12th person touching this will of course be at higher risk than the first. And we may have to modify our puja such that now it becomes a no-touch offering. Only one single person can offer, or the rest can do as what my students are doing in this picture, not touching, just a gesture of offer. What about traditional blessings? We've got Sangha members in our audience today, and I'm very, very happy they are here because the Sangha similarly has to be informed of all these concerns and risks. And I'm not too sure whether our traditional blessing of spraying water with a flower is something that is acceptable. We may have to also modify that. Small group teaching in classrooms will be history. This is something that is completely unacceptable. And we have to be mindful that for those students who are more than 12 years old, whom the government allow you to resume activity, will have to have their activities similarly in a large room or a hall whereby social distancing can be practiced. What about singing? This is a beloved activity in Metta Lodge where we celebrate the birthdays of all our students. I think this cannot be done anymore. This has to be aborted until better times come. Now, the steps in prevention involves a large workforce. The physical structure, cleaning it, disinfecting it, is in fact the easy part. The building and all the places where human hands can touch needs to be disinfected before any gathering, and immediately after it, again disinfected. So all cushions, chairs, etc. have to be spray wiped with disinfectant. And there are various methods of doing this. My good brother SK might go into details, but there are various methods of doing it. The cheapest, of course, is to go to Mr. DIY and buy the pressure spray and wipe. There must be minimal utilization of things like doorknobs and handles. So all these doors have to be wide open. And of course, the toilets. Before and after every gathering, we have to be sure that our toilets are disinfected. Now, the difficult part is actually the human factor. Cooperation, social responsibility, a new learned behavior and social norms, and more importantly, constant vigilance. I fear that the fourth one is the one where people may fail, because being humans, we tend to take things for granted. So there has to be constant reminders all over the center and vihara of this need. Temperature has to be screened at the entrance. So that means there can only be one entrance. Everyone who is screened has to be tagged so that anybody meeting them knows that they have been screened. Addresses, contact numbers have to be registered. And nowadays, with our modern Malaysian IC, it is relatively easy. All you got to do is invest in a $100, $200 card reader, and it can automatically register it into a computer. You must have gallons of alcohol rubbed for everybody, and mandatory face masks. I have already mentioned about sitting positions. Everyone during the service has to have their photographs taken by someone so that their positions relative to each other, to the side, front, and back is documented. This is needed because in the event of contact tracing, the Ministry of Health needs to know who were the one in the immediate vicinity. Children less than 12 years old under the SOP is not allowed. And I think this is quite reasonable. This is a picture of the children that my wife teaches in the Dhamma class. Very lovely children, but how are you going to control them from playing and running about? It is a sheer impossibility. And hence, I think it is very reasonable that children less than 12 years old are not allowed into any center. Hence, online children's Dhamma class have to continue. SOP has already made it clear that functions such as weddings in temples, churches, and religious associations remain under suspension. We already have one wedding in Metta Lodge postponed to next year because of this. I myself had wondered, what if somebody passes away? Because Brother Cheong and I are the ones who often do the wake services. But the SOP has made it clear that wake service can only be conducted in the house or a funeral parlor. And only close relatives are allowed to attend. And even then, not more than 20 people. So our answer for any inquiries from our members with regards to funeral services or wake services is already given by the SOP. What about arms round? To be realistic, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, arms round by our Venerable Sangha is no longer safe. Why? One, it's public gathering, which is probably not going to be even allowed by the government. And 2, for our Sangha members, it is unknown context. Now, the present dictum is anybody you meet is potentially infected. And you yourself is also potentially infected. And hence, we must behave as such. I got this picture from the internet, the one on the right, where everybody there is wearing face shields and masks, Sangha and people offering. But even then, I'm not too sure as to how safe this is, because you will notice everybody is touching the packets of food. 4 mics. It can still spread coronavirus. What about food offerings? If we are to have Sangha members in our center, somebody has to offer them food, and we have to ensure their safety. At this point in time, the SOP is clear. No activities involving food and drinks is to be allowed for reasons which are quite sensible. And hence, I think that it will be still up to one appointed person to cook and offer for the Sangha in our viharas and centers with resident monks. And nobody from outside will be allowed to offer for the time being. Communal meals, something so beloved of our societies and which is so good for fellowship, sadly will have to be stopped completely. Now, there is a warning. Kebenaran operasi akan ditarik balik serta-merta jika gagal mematuhi SOP. The government has already given us warnings. So please do not curi-curi break SOPs, naively thinking that good karma will protect you. Even if you are a vegetarian, standing in front of a bull, there is no guarantee that the bull will not charge you. So please, brothers and sisters, if the government withdraws the SOP for you to function now, that is a small matter. You will just close shop for now. But if the government withdraws its religious center status for our centers, then that is big trouble. Really, really big trouble. So I beg of everyone, please, as Buddhist organizations, we do not want to incur the wrath of the authorities by having a cluster. It certainly is, as in South Korea, as in Singapore, very, very bad publicity if any one of our centers is to have a cluster. So if you look at the SOP, which Brother Tan put out earlier too, there are 4 big no's. 70 years and above, no. 12 years and below, no. If you are sick or unwell, no. If you have diabetes, cancer, etc., you are not encouraged to attend. And of course, the activities like marriage, funerals, etc. are banned. But many of our members are very old. Many of our ex-cos are very old. Many of our volunteers are very old. And similarly, many of our members have chronic diseases. I myself fit into 2 criteria here, so I should be banned from even walking near the center. And what about our Warga Ermas? Please remember, in Malaysia, Warga Ermas is 60 years and above. When I eat in Seoul Garden, I get discount. When I go to immigration, I don't need to queue because I am a Warga Ermas. And the government had already made it clear in another non-related announcement that Warga Ermas and kanak-kanak tidak dibenar berada di tempat awam. Now, if no elderly people are going to be allowed at our religious centers, it will literally probably cut off a big majority of our congregation. So, these are formidable logistics which are facing us, brothers and sisters. And every center, of course, will differ. Should we just continue to offer online services instead, even when the government allows religious centers to reopen? Yesterday, I had our usual fellowship. It was a service with puja, etc. And it was entirely run by my students. It was entirely conducted by my students, with only me giving the Dhamma sharing. There were some of you in this same audience now who attended the online service. When you look at the way the young students run the online service, with their puja, with their offerings online, with clips, etc., etc., many of us, I myself, realize that I am out. Their IT technology and IT savviness is such that they can make the online session so interesting, so engaging. And we need their talents because we unfortunately are locked in our little cages of thoughts. We need to relearn. But why do we need to have to do from scratch when we can get these people to help us? As Brother Tan said, the churches have decided that they will remain closed. And my Christian friends have regular services online. In summary, close contact not allowed. 1 meter distancing, no socializing. The less talk, the better, as far as physical contact is concerned. All our speech, our breath, our saliva, our cough, our sneeze is depositing viruses if we are infected. So it is airborne, as you and I know, in a short distance. If you inhale it, then we are in trouble. Whether it is the mouth, the eyes, or the nose, we cannot touch. That's why no mouth, no eyes, no nose contact. Fomite is surface viruses. Someone touched the surface, for example here the computer, another person touches the same computer, there is transmission. We have reached a stage now, we can't even share computers. Everybody must have his own computer, let alone tables, chairs, etc. Which is why I mentioned earlier that any surface that anybody comes into contact with has to be disinfected after use. The norm now is to stand 1 meter, wear mask, alcohol rub our hands, and the only greeting being Anjali. Okay, that's where we have an advantage. We have been doing the Anjali. But this is going to be the new standard behavior. And our devotees, our members, must be able to do this consistently. It is sad, but even our furniture in our viharas and centers that used to be for people to sit, chit-chat, talk, they may have to be stored away so that people do not socialize close to one another. And this is very counterintuitive to fellowship, something we have been promoting all these decades. This is Singapore again. You're not allowed to talk when you're in the MRT. You're not even allowed to speak on the handphone when you're in the MRT. Reason, if you speak on the handphone, you are spewing out the virus if you are infected, and similarly, if you talk, the same thing. So it's going to be a very quiet MRT. If we are going to do this in our center, we may not succeed. First, people may not be so disciplined. It is likely they will not be so disciplined. My crystal ball, most activities will remain online. Now, there are many courses available now to actually help teachers and leaders communicate online effectively. They teach you, for example, how to use Zoom. They teach you even about lighting in Zoom. They teach you about mute everybody when someone is talking or when someone is chanting, etc., etc., etc. All these courses are actually free and available online. In my own university, there is a big thing. This is a big thing. We have dedicated staff for IT, and we have a dedicated staff who only handles all the IT material for us. All right, so this is something which all of us will have to learn. Now, Buddhist centers, brothers and sisters, need to be IT smart. It needs to be digitally equipped to function effectively now in the 32nd plane of existence, which is the online plane of existence. Now, many of us have used Zoom and Facebook Live to broadcast services, but most of this is actually at personal level. Now we need it to be at official level, at the center, at the vihara. Reality online services is here to stay. Buddhist leaders and teachers, actually now we have no choice but to be professional and competent in IT. Many of us are of the generation where we watch James Bond right from Sean Connery to now. You will remember the old Q. He was the man who made all the gadgets for James Bond, from his car to his watch to his fantastic guns, etc., etc. When the present James Bond came out of retirement, he met the new Q, expecting that the new Q will give him all these similar gadgets. Instead, who he met was a geeky young man carrying only a laptop. That's the new Q. The young man said, "Welcome to the 21st century, Mr. Bond." And I think this same statement applies to every one of us now. This will be the future. In fact, not the future. This is now. This is going on right now. That even when someone is teaching in the vihara or the center, he or she is teaching to an empty hall. It is instead recorded professionally and beamed via the internet, either through Facebook Live or some other vehicle. The person is actually speaking to an empty hall, or in Malaysia's case, maybe 30 people. But we have to master this skill. We have to get this equipment, and we have to know how to do this effectively. Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, this is probably the most important slide I have for you all today. A professional staff or a volunteer position will emerge. This person's portfolio will be to oversee the technical aspects of this 32nd digital realm, to develop groups and strategies to outreach online effectively. It is probable that this person will play the most important role in any center that wants to flourish in the 21st century. And before I end, I just want to bring up one fact of life. All centers need dana to continue. With the reduction in the number of people coming, we will need new ways of getting dana for the center, for its running costs, for its development. This will again require a paradigm shift in thinking. How are you going to raise funds on the internet, online? How are you going to allow people to transfer money if they so wish? All these have to be considered. And that is why this person, this new professional staff, to arrange for cell groups, to arrange for outreach, to arrange for all the digital services, and even raising money, this person will very likely have to be a professional staff because he needs to have that professional knowledge and skill. And this person is a person that every center will need. Thank you, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, for giving me this opportunity. I look forward to the Theravada Buddhist Council of Malaysia for wise leadership for our temples and centers to navigate the 21st century. We are all looking forward to TBCM's leadership. Suki Honto.